All right. Welcome back to the live show. You know what time it is. It is currently 3:26 a.m. And of course, today's date is the 6th of July, 2025. Yes, a lot is going on in the United States. You know, when you pray for rain, you got to be able to deal with the mud as well. But this is bad, man. God is in control. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. A couple of weeks ago, we experienced the ceasefire deal between Israel and Iran, and just yesterday, on Independence Day, July 4th, actually 2 days ago now, the big beautiful bill was signed by the Commander in Chief, the 45th, now the 47th President of the United States. But today, we're talking about Texas, and of course, it's raining season and it's heavy flooding season right now. So right here, at least 24 dead as floodwaters devastate Texas. Yes, all we could do is pray and hope that these people are okay and that their families are just able to bear the loss because it's not it's not easy. It's not easy at all. It's not just easy. That's all I can say. Well, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican, a Democrat, or independent, liberal, conservative, progressive. It does not matter. What matters is you love the United States. You are American, and you believe in the idea of this land of the free and home of the brave. And be nice in the comment section because this are very uh delicate issue, especially with the flooding and people losing their lives. So please be nice in the comment section. All right. With that being said, welcome to the Genesis Show. Enjoy the show. It is your boy Genesis. Here we go.
All right, we now want to focus on the rescue mission. And joining us now from the U.S. Coast Guard Air Station in Corpus Christi is Lieutenant Ian Hopper, AMT-3 Seth Reeves, Lieutenant Blair Ogujifor, and AST-3 Scott Ruskin. Thank you all so much for joining us and for helping out in this mission to find these 23 young little girls and the families who are also impacted by the storm. So, Lieutenant Hopper, I'll start with you. How is the Coast Guard responding to this flood in Texas right now?
Good morning. Yeah. So primarily we're using our helicopter assets. So the MH-65 Echo is primarily a maritime search and rescue asset. So we're used to going offshore. But right now we are using it for inland search and rescue. So operating using our hoist capability or just landing and picking people up and transiting them in the MH-65 Dolphin.
So I don't know who's best to answer this question, but you all figure that out. Obviously, you look at the video, you see these incredible floodwaters, you see the incredible efforts to rescue people, and hundreds of people have been rescued. What are the additional complications that you all have to deal with that you have to obviously you have a lot of people who want, civilians who want to help out, but you don't want them to get in the way. What are the additional complications that you want to kind of warn civilians about not getting in your way?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different complications. Primarily, a lot of civilians are where we were all operating on the same frequency when we were flying. Additional complications would be so Scott here, he's our rescue swimmer, and he you can explain a little bit.
Kind of what was going on the ground. Yeah. A lot of times what was happening is, everyone wants to do as much as they can to help out, and we truly appreciate that. But sometimes they don't always have the best communication. So biggest thing is just trying to pass stuff off to the higher level of care, pass it up the food chain about who's where, who needs help. And then you can get, like a government agency out there to try to help you out as fast as we can. And then we can triage from there and kind of get people to safety. But most important thing is staying out of the river, super dangerous, and keep yourself safe before you put yourself in a more dangerous situation.
When we look at this current scenario with nearly 24 young girls that are missing, what scenario exists that they can be found alive? Have they, could they have just been swept away and they're, hanging onto a tree? Is there any scenario you see where they can be found alive?
That's of course that's a hard question to answer, but ultimately there's multiple assets, crews out there, both Coast Guard. You've got the Army out there. You've got DPS, the Department of Public Safety for Texas. So we're giving everyone the best chance that they've got, and really working as a team in Texas here to give anyone who's still out there the best shot.
Yeah, Lieutenant Ejiofor, or anybody else, you could chime in with stories as well if you've heard them. But what are some of the stories that people are telling you who you have rescued? What are they saying about their experience?
So personally, I haven't been able to speak with anyone. I know we landed yesterday, and then we also had to take the new crews out to give them a fam flight of the area. But some of our crews that stayed back, they did get to see a couple of the girls that we actually took in our aircraft, reunited with their families. So I know, and the folks at the hotel too, they had a mother who approached them and was like, "Thank you so much. My daughter is alive because you guys were able to assist her today." So, I mean, I can only imagine that they're grateful. When we were picking up folks, have, young girls who were asking, about if we knew where their siblings were. And, at that point, we're just trying to get and help those who we can assist. Just praying and hoping that folks are able to get reunited with their families.
So, Scott, when you all do hear from people that need rescuing, what is the most common way that do you just find them, or are people able to reach out with phones? And what's the most common way that they contact you to let you know that they need help?
Yeah, as far as right now, we've been getting our tasking from higher up, mostly from the Army as of right now. But a lot of it's just been large stage triaging. So we were at Mystic yesterday for a long period of time. Probably got about 200 people out of there alone. And it was just, we just saw a huge crowd of about 200 kids at a campsite. So we're like, cool, that's where we're going to go. And we're just going to get as many people out as we can until they were all gone. We got them all out yesterday at Mystic. So.
Wow.
Hey, listen, first and foremost, we know this isn't easy for you all. You're doing God's work out there, and sometimes the results aren't what you want them to be. It's rescue and recovery. And we just want you to know we're praying for you, and we thank God every day that there are people like you out there who are willing to show up and do this, even on the tough days. So thank you so much.
God bless you all.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for what you're doing. We appreciate it. And
Yep. It's not easy, man. All we can do is pray for these people in Texas, and to see what's going on right now in Texas. It just brings back how lucky we are if you're not experiencing what is going on right here in Texas where you are right now. So just be thankful, man. Be thankful. All right. Of course, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, obviously, she details the federal response to deadly flooding in Texas. Here we go.
Well, thank you, everyone, for being here today. And I want to thank Governor Abbott for his leadership, and know that President Trump is absolutely heartbroken by what has happened here in Texas, and the loss of life is absolutely devastating to him and Melania. This morning I talked with him several times, and he wanted to make sure that all of you know how much he loves Texas, how much he's grieving for your families that have lost someone, and the beautiful children that we're still looking for and hoping to return to their families, and that he is absolutely committed to using all the resources of the federal government to help unify families, rescue all those that were still missing, and return those who maybe we will recover back to their families as soon as possible, and that we will be here walking alongside each other and helping throughout this entire crisis. And know that I'm extremely grateful as well for the leadership of Nim Kidd, who's a fantastic emergency operations manager and has been well known throughout this country for leading through such a time as this. And this tragic situation is something that is unprecedented. We recognize that at the federal level. We also recognize that when something like this happens to a community, happens to a state, that the best responders are those locally, because it's your family members, it's your community members that are being impacted, and you can respond quickly. And the role of the state is to run and manage that emergency, but the federal government needs to be here for the support and extra resources on the ground as well. And that is what we are doing and what President Trump has dedicated to continue to do. I've visited with the president already about this federal disaster declaration that the governor was going to sign here this morning, and he has indicated that he will honor that and that he will accept that. So that response and that relief will be coming. And we also have had assets here on the ground since the beginning of this crisis started, since this weather event did start. And even before it came, we were alerted. We did have Coast Guard assets here that were helping to rescue people. We're thankful for the airframe that showed up and those coasties that were here walking alongside our DPS, and the emergency responders that were here, the Texas assets that were deployed already, and that coordination was seamless, and I appreciate them for putting that request in right away. We also had our BORTAC team from Customs and Border Protection out here helping with rescues. They are a specialized, trained force to come in these types of situations and bring their skill set to bear. That is a resource that's incredibly important to the Department of Homeland Security, but also in these types of situations when we need emergency management response. We also did have a CBP advisory interdiction specialist here that was helping with some coordination of air assets that has been present. And then we are looking at the other entities that are under the department, what can be utilized. And of course, FEMA is standing at an enhanced level right now, which means that they are plugged in to the State Operations Center. We are engaged, and then as this response goes forward, that their role will continue to be filled as it always is in these situations, and will be timely and responsive as to what the governor requests and what is needed here on the ground. I do know that the state of Texas is amazing in how it responds to disasters. Not every state is like that. Many states do not do what the people of Texas do. And you are an example to the nation of getting through these difficult times, but also know that you're not alone, that you have the entire country's hearts and are with you and are walking alongside you. And at the department, we will continue to bring more resources. We just, at the request of a previous conversation less than an hour ago, in visiting with him and with the governor, requested more fixed-wing aircraft from Coast Guard to come and help us, making sure that we're going out and locating individuals as fast as possible that we know are still missing, and that we also will send more airframe as far as helicopters that have the ability to come in, and some will be equipped, and the fixed wings with thermals so they can continue to work all night long. Some of the assets that other agencies may offer don't have that kind of equipment, but the Coast Guard does have it, and so that will be deployed so that the search and rescue efforts don't stop even when it does get dark at night. We'll continue to stay engaged, and I'll be here. I'm going to go up to the camp, Mystic, and I'm going to go around town and spend some time here today, and make sure that when I am calling and talking to the president throughout the day, that he has timely information and that the requests that are coming here from the leadership on the ground are met immediately, and that we can take care of these families and take care of these folks right away. We do know the number one priority now is people, is making sure we're finding people as fast as possible and we're returning them to their families. And then also, throughout the process, we'll get into what damage was done to public infrastructure, what may have been done to, I know we have 1,800 people that are still without power. What I understand is people still have water, but we do have damage to bridges and to roads. Thankfully, dams held. But all of that is an assessment that we'll continue to work with you on to make sure that you recover as quickly as possible. So, again, thank you all for being strong and being an example for people. Someone told me a long time ago, over 30 years ago, that to never get angry on behalf of yourself, get angry on behalf of the other people, to always go out and get up every day and go work for other people and help them. And so I know many of you that are out there responding and helping your neighbors had losses too. You're hurting because you're grieving somebody that may have been lost. We were created to serve people. God created us to serve each other. And now is a wonderful time to go find somebody you can help, somebody that you can take care of and get them through this process. And that will make us stronger and better into the future. So our prayers are with you. President Trump wants you to know that he and Melania are praying for you and love you. And
We should get the full version of that one. But let's see what CNN has to say.
I'm Mayor Joe Herring Jr., Mayor of Kerrville, Texas. I'm glad you're here, and I have a few comments to make. People need to know today will be a hard day. It will be a hard day. This is the message I want to share. The city of Kerrville is thankful. We have help from our city crews, from county personnel, from state agencies, and federal resources, including the Coast Guard. I have been asked how people can help. The sheriff has mentioned that a fund has been set up by the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country. Information about this can be found on the city's Facebook page. In fact, if you want to know how to help, I know from my phone, from my texts, from my emails, thousands of people across our state and the world want to know how they can help. The easiest way to get information about that is to follow the City of Kerrville Facebook page. City of Kerrville, City Hall Facebook page. They have done an admirable job of making sure all resources and all information is available, not only to the citizens of Kerrville, but to the citizens of the world. I'm thankful you're here. Today will be a hard day. Please pray for our community. Thank you. Next up is City Manager Dalton Rice.
Thank you, Mayor. Dalton Rice, the City Manager for the City of Kerrville. Just wanted to give a couple updates on operations. Operations did continue through the evening. We used specialized equipment with a lot of helicopters trying to identify any areas that we could find, heat sources or whatever. So operations did continue throughout the night. Obviously, the water did recede into this morning. I do want to encourage folks with road damage, even though a road may be open, please use extreme caution. If water does get under the road, we are seeing a lot of debris, a lot of asphalt that is washing up, so there could be some other damaged areas. We did start boots on the ground operations about 8 a.m. this morning. And started about southwest of Hunt, so southwest of Camp Mystic. These folks will be traveling very difficult terrain up through Ingram, and we're going to start getting information. So again, as the sheriff had alluded to, the information is changing constantly, and it's going to be changing by the minute. Talked about roads. Don't do your own searches. We know everybody wants to get help. As the roads start clearing up, you're gonna want to get out there. We are in constant communication with families. We're in constant communication with those around, and so we will continue to effortlessly work through working with our partners. Again, we've been working with Border Patrol, Texas DPS, game wardens, federal side, U.S. Coast Guard is here. We want to thank them. Air assets. Again, we have hundreds of state and federal and local resources out here supporting this community. We do have grief counselors out there, so if there's anybody that needs any support, please don't hesitate to reach out as well. We still are operating shelters. Shelters are the same ones that we gave out before. Good news is a lot of the shelters have gone down in numbers, so there's either been those that have been reunited or kind of moving on. A couple of locations we had 18 girls in there that have been reunited with their families. We're down to about 4 that we're working on reunification as well. So reunification efforts are continuously ongoing from the missing person side. Here over the next few hours, we're going to be putting more information out there as far as missing persons, on how to contact if you have somebody that is missing or a loved one. Y'all have the camp number right now. We are continuously working on the other missing person side. The best way that I can sum this up is we have the known, which is the 27 potential missing campers that we're looking for now. The unknown is how many people were here locally, visiting, on vacation, doing other things in the community that we just do not have numbers. So these numbers are going to change throughout the day. And with that, we will take 5 questions.
Individuals, 27, those all the campers of those all children, and then also we know the total number missing that we know are not the unknowns of adults and children.
So the 27 missing is the children from Camp Mystic that we have as far as right now for the number. As far as unknown other missing, we do not have an accurate count, and we don't even want to begin to estimate at this time.
Can you expand on that? A lot of community business owners who are living along the river have said they are very concerned the number will go up of missing, and they want to know more about how you guys are looking for them, what the efforts are, maybe even some of the challenges. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I alluded to with the operations piece, we have basically a team of about 34 folks from Texas Task Force 1, DPS, Game Wardens, and Border Patrol that are boots on the ground on each side of the river, starting in Hunt, and they're starting to make their way up. Across this entire area, it's probably about a 17-kilometer stretch. They are going to be in very debris terrain, very difficult, challenging contours along the riverbanks. So it is a very harsh environment. We are doing what's called a primary search, which is basically a very quick search, but when I say quick, that is up, down, sideways. They're turning over as many rocks as they can, culverts, up in trees. They are looking at every possible location, and then we'll start going into a layered approach, or what we also have from the locals, which has been a really great resource. In the floods that we have, there are known collection points where debris tends to collect along the riverbank. We do have intel on what sites and locations those are, so we can also put additional resources into those collection sites and start getting a more focused approach on that.
We've seen a lot of tragic flooding. We've seen a lot of tragic flooding in central Texas over the past few weeks. There are so many people, I know this is so early, but there are so many people already asking what can be done to stop the loss of life. We saw 13 in San Antonio. We have seen an unknown number, but at least 27 here. They're scared.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think that's a question that we definitely need to answer at some point in time. Right now, our focus is on the search and rescue efforts, making sure that we get these families out, get some closure, where we can. And so I think that is a great question that we need to ask ourselves, but right now we want to focus on search and rescue operations.
Are there still rescue efforts going on right now?
Yes, we are. We have been in continuous search and rescue operations. Again, this river, even though it started in West Kerr, this goes all the way down through East Kerr County and is continuing on, to the southeast. So yes, search and rescue operations are continuously ongoing, and we'll continue to update on that. One more question.
Where are you finding these folks right now in active rescue this morning? Are they stuck in an island of land? Where are they?
Typically rescues, if we do find them, they're going to be in trees, or we find them, either on high ground. Again, most of the rescues that we are having at this point in time are other camps. So we have a lot of camps, and they are all accounted for, but they are isolated because of road damage. So we know where they're at. We're getting them food, water, resources, and now it's a matter of just getting them safely across, low water crossings or other areas to other shelters.
There's so much confusion, though, about these kids. We know that there's missing kids. There's pictures and there's names and all this stuff. Are you going to give a list of the names of the kids?
Absolutely not. We are not going to give a list of the names. We want to protect, those families and their information. The other thing I want to point out, and thank you for bringing that up, these families are getting bombarded with spam calls and spam information. So we want to keep the kids' information and these families' names out of any public, light, to give them the opportunity to grieve and to make sure that we give them the best possible resources that we can and get them reconnected as soon as possible. So some of them are, and some of those have been a great help as well. So yes, it is a double-edged sword, but we need to work through it. So our next one will be at 2 o'clock, and we'll give updates then. Thank you.
All right, that briefing coming from Kerrville, Texas, there in central Texas, after this horrific flash flooding took place yesterday along the Guadalupe River. And this is a river that is dotted with dozens of summer camps. People come from far and wide in the thousands for their kids to be going to camp along the Guadalupe River there. And we just heard the update from authorities there, including the mayor, U.S. Representative Chip Roy, as well as the city manager, saying that they have 27 recovered deceased now. 18 of them are adults, 9 are children, but 27 remain missing, and they are campers coming from Camp Mystic, one of the many camps along the Guadalupe River there. And the ongoing searches are being conducted. There will be another press conference local time, 2 o'clock, and then again at 6 p.m. there in Central Texas. And of course, we'll cover that as best we can and bring those to you as long as we have a good signal. It's a tragedy taking place there. And you heard from the city mayor, who said it's a hard day. He said it several times, and you could feel his agony. This is a very hard day. All right, our Betsy Klein is traveling with the president. Betsy, you have a response coming from the White House right now?
That's right, Frederica. We are starting to hear from the president and others at the White House about the federal response to really what is an unfathomable tragedy in Central Texas. The president posting to social media a short while ago, quote, "The Trump administration is working with state and local officials on the ground in Texas in response to the tragic flooding that took place yesterday. Our Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, will be there shortly." He goes on to say that Melania and I are praying for all of the families impacted by this horrible tragedy. Our brave first responders are on site doing what they do best. God bless the families, and God bless Texas. Now, we learned from that press conference a moment ago that the president spoke with Texas Congressman Chip Roy, a top Trump ally. Roy spoke about this in really emotional terms as he described the 27 people who have died, including 9 children. The president also addressed this aboard Air Force One late last night as he made his way here to the Bedminster area, where he is at his golf club today. There is a lid at the White House, which means we are not expecting to see the president for the rest of the day. But as he noted, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem is on heading to the site of the flooding. The president said, "We are going to take care of Texas." He has activated FEMA, the U.S. Coast Guard. We are also expecting the Army Corps of Engineers to be on site. And the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, said that DHS has sent Coast Guard to help with search and rescue efforts. There were helicopters punching through some of these storms yesterday, trying to help recover some of the people. It's also worth noting that the president has been so deeply critical of FEMA. He says he plans to phase it out after this year's hurricane season. He wants to shift responsibility to state and local governments. We also have heard from the First Lady. She said in a post to social media earlier this morning, quote, "My heart goes out to the parents in Texas during a difficult time. I'm holding you in my thoughts and sending prayers for strength, comfort, and resilience." Vice President J.D. Vance also sending his thoughts and prayers. But we also don't know the full extent of the federal response so far. We don't know whether the president has spoken with Texas Governor Greg Abbott, but we do not expect to see the president for the duration of this day, Frederica. Obviously, the White House monitoring this very closely and will be watching very closely when they have that 2 o'clock updated press conference with more information here.
All right, Betsy Klein, thank you so much. We're going to continue to monitor the
The best thing we can do for Texas right now is just pray for them. Pray for Texas, okay? Because this is not anything you want to go through. I experienced Hurricane Helene last year with my wife and kid. It was wild. I had to move my family to another city because we didn't have power for about 9 days. No internet for about 10 days. So we were at Airbnb for about 11 days. So it's not easy, man, when you go through stuff like this.
Continue
to follow breaking news out of Central Texas. At this hour, a desperate search and rescue effort continues for dozens of people missing after floodwaters inundated an area north of San Antonio. Among the missing, 27 young girls from a camp, Camp Mystic, one of many summer camps along the Guadalupe River. And this morning, another round of heavy rainfall triggered more flash flood emergencies in the region. Hundreds have been rescued, including this person who was clinging to a light pole. Officials say at least 27 people have died, 9 children and 18 adults. Among the fatalities, 9-year-old Janie Hunt, her mother confirming to CNN today that the young girl who was among the 24 missing from Camp Mystic has died. And also confirmed killed Jane Ragsdale. She was director at another girls' camp, Heart of the Hills, which was not in session at the time. Ragsdale is described as the heart and soul of that camp. We've got a team of correspondents and meteorologists covering these fast-moving developments. Let's begin with CNN's Ed Lavandera in hard-hit Hunt, Texas. Ed.
Hi, Frederica. Well, this morning as we were arriving here in Hunt, Texas, we were surveying some areas that were heavily damaged. And from just beyond this ledge that went down in toward the edge of the river, we heard a man calling out Joyce Catherine. Joyce Catherine happened several times, and we kind of followed the voice, and that's where we met Ty Baden. He is a father of 21-year-old Joyce Catherine Baden. His daughter had come out here to spend the July 4th weekend with 3 other friends in a home just along the river. And they lost contact with the group around 4 a.m. early Friday morning. Ty Baden has spent the morning walking. By the time we met him, he'd already walked along about a mile, had come across the body of another young victim and called it in to 911. And this is a father desperately searching for his 21-year-old daughter in hopes that he would stumble upon a miracle.
Hey.
Your daughter was here with 2 friends?
Yeah, 3.
3 friends.
You know, and
so it's 4 of them.
Correct. And she and the young man, they went to elementary school and high school together, and the young, one of her friends, Ella Cahill, that's her boyfriend, Aiden is, they went to school through high school, so they've known each other a long time. The other girl, her name is Reese. I can't remember her last name right now. She is Ella's roommate at UTSA, so we've never met her or her parents, but God bless her, and we pray that all 4 of them are still alive.
All 4 are missing?
Yes, they're all missing, and you know, it's been 4 o'clock yesterday morning that we were told that, you know, they were on the phone with Aiden's dad, who they own the house where they were. It was a very nice house, no longer there. And Aiden said, hey, you know, I've got to go. I got to help Ella and Reese. So he gave the phone to Joyce Catherine. Joyce Catherine said, they just got washed away. And then a few seconds later, the phone went dead, and that's all we know. So we presume that she got washed away as well. And if you go back to where the house is, it's not a good sign. And that's why I was telling you, my son and I were walking, and I thought it was a mannequin. It was a little boy, about 8 or 10 years old, and he was dead. So
oh man,
you saw that this morning?
Yes. So we you know, we're just walking
Jesus.
and doing the same thing we were doing. Look, you know, when we stumbled across him. But hopefully we can find our children, our daughter and her friends, alive. So anyway, I ask you if you would pray, and whoever watches this thing, pray. We got together and picked up our son and came over here, and we waited around at a center. And God bless them, they're doing a great job. It's in Ingram, Texas, at the elementary school, and they're kind of like the place where all the survivors are brought. And we were hoping that we would hear our daughter and friends' names called, but they never did call. So we said, this morning we're going to come out and try to find them ourselves.
I mean, you're walking through this mess, hoping for a miracle.
Amen. Keep the faith. That's all we can do.
Dang.
So That's all I got, Ed. And thank
Can you tell us about your daughter?
Yes, she's a beautiful girl, and I think I sent you a picture. Just a wonderful girl. Couldn't ask for a better daughter. All through school is just easy, you know, no shenanigans or anything like that. I mean, she was a normal girl. We would have fun, but yes, we loved her dearly.
And Frederica, what just I found gut-wrenching is as we were winding down the interview there, as he continued the search, he told me about how he read a book years ago about a father during World War II whose child had been in a house that had been bombed, and that the father spent days and days combing through the rubble trying to search for his son and never gave up. And after days of combing through the rubble, that the man during World War II found his kid. And he just told me, he goes, I hope I'm that guy today.
Gosh.
And that's
that's powerful.
Stunning moment as you think about what that poor man and his family are going through today.
I hope he's that guy too. All right, Ed Lavandera, thank you so much. Officials confirming at least 27 people are dead and dozens more are missing following severe flash flooding in Kerr County. An intense rescue effort is underway right now after torrential downpours triggered the flooding along the Guadalupe River, raising the water level more than 20 feet in less than 2 hours.
Dang.
Our CNN affiliate KABB is on the ground in Hunt, Texas, showing us the catastrophic damage at one community store.
I want to walk you through, they didn't want to be on camera, but they walked me through this area and what it did look like. So they said that this was once all boarded up. This was all brick and now completely opened up. That just goes to show how fierce that storm was and how it powered through. I want you to walk with me down here closer so we can get a closer look inside the actual building. You could just see just the debris that is completely clinging on to the building. But if you take a closer look here inside, you could just see it is just completely packed in there, just all the debris that just swept right into the Hunt store here in Hunt. This was a staple, they were telling me. I did speak to the cashier who worked here for many years, and so he saw a lot of residents come into the area. I also want to mention that closer down here, again, there's lots of debris, branches, down power lines. What I thought was just devastating, what they told me, was right over here is where the post office once was, if you believe it. I was completely shocked. He said, this is the brick from the post office. And as you can see, it's completely gone at this, it's no longer here. But what we did find was a Cassandra, what's her name tag, which was somewhere further where we first started. It's just, everything is scattered here. It's just devastating, just the amount of destruction this floodwater caused here in Hunt. So we're still speaking with residents here, and I did ask the cashier here about like rebuilding. You know, where do you go from here? And he says, you know, you just completely take this, you just rebuild from the start, bottom up.
Mm-hmm. And a local resident whose family lived in the area for more than 100 years says he's never seen anything like this.
This very well may be the worst flood Hunt has ever seen, because it would have started back up the South Fork. The devastation is unbelievable. How these kids survived in any of these camps along the river is nothing short of a miracle. But I grew up with this storm. Like I said, I've danced here, I've been here, sat by the fireplace in a rocking chair and drank a beer. The devastation, there are just no words, Taylor, that I can say that describe what I'm seeing. My ranch, it was completely underwater. The water got that high. Just unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. And again, 27 people, including 9 children, their bodies have been recovered. They died. And the search continues for 27 young campers, all from an all-girls camp.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Our senior correspondent,
Lord.
Mike Tobin, is on the ground in Kerrville. He has the latest for us there. Mike.
And, John, certainly one of the messages that we got out of that press conference from Secretary Noem is that the people out here trying to recover from this devastating flood, that they're not alone, that disaster declaration is going to be sent to President Trump, and he is anticipated to be in agreement with it. So it looks like more resources will come the way of these people. One thing I can show you now, just looking around where I'm standing, is just the incredible power of this storm. I'm down in the river basin at this moment. This area where I'm standing was all covered in water when this flood came through here, almost like a wave. And you can see all of this debris. The structure shelter that I'm standing in obviously had tremendous construction. It looks like these pilings went all the way into the ground, anchored in concrete. So this building didn't move, but the trees all got caught up in here because this place stood steady. If you look at the tree right in front of me, it's about 1.5 feet, 2 feet thick, and it was just ripped right out of the ground. And to give you an idea, as we continue to look around, the highway is about 15 feet above my head in this location, and we go 15 feet down. That is the Guadalupe River, where you can see so much debris is piled up on the banks of the Guadalupe itself. The river looks calm right now. You have people back out walking along the banks. It's hard to imagine so much destruction rolled through here so rapidly. And one of the things we do see as we stand around are the helicopters coming in overhead, conducting searches along the banks, as you heard them say in the press conference, hoping that they can find some survivors, victims of this storm who are still clinging to life. One of the things I know right now is that it's warm out here. If it's warm, people have a better chance of living longer. They don't succumb to hypothermia because of the warm climate. And we also know that the warm atmosphere. We also know that they have people on the ground, boots on the ground, as the county officials have said, searching along the banks of the river, aided by local information, people who know where the debris piles up when the floods come through. John?
Mike, we heard from Congressman Chip Roy that, especially regarding that girls' Christian camp that was so badly devastated by this storm, he said that some people gave their lives trying to rescue some of the kids from that camp. Do you know any of those stories specifically? I know it's still early in this terrible event.
I've heard more than one story now of people who went in to save others, and qualified swimmers, strong swimmers, who went into the floodwaters trying to save other people, and they didn't come out, John.
Wow. So again, the number's 32 dead, 14 of them children. And the governor of the state of Texas is asking people to continue to pray. We were told that the president is praying for the people of Kerrville, Texas, which is in the hill country, a little bit northwest of San Antonio and southwest of Austin. Kerrville, not a big city, but wow, they are going to have just an awful lot to deal with. As you look at this footage here, and as the search goes on, they are hopeful of finding more survivors, because that water threw so many people into so many trees and such a rough area. They're hopeful that they still might be able to find survivors. You say, Mike, there are more than 800 rescues that have already taken place.
800 rescues that have already taken place. And what we're hearing, as far as a lot of the people who are rescued, are people who were able to get to some high ground. And they may have been stranded because as they got to high ground, any roads that would lead up to where they were destroyed. So as of this morning, we heard a lot of stories of people who were stranded, and they had water and food airdropped to them while the effort was made today to get some of those people out. We didn't hear from this update exactly how many of those people were rescued, just that broad number, 800 plus people who were rescued in different situations. And we saw some of those dramatic rescues in which the Coast Guard Dolphin helicopter was involved, and they had the ability to drop a cable down and hoist people up from some of these rough areas. And one of the things that's going to slow people down as they're searching on foot out here is simply the fact that you do have rough terrain here in the Texas Hill Country, and all of that is now complicated by all the debris that has been caught on what you will have that's in these rough areas, all the debris that gets caught. And it's difficult for these people who are now searching to get through that area and find somebody. And they could very well search an area and miss something that is buried underneath the debris. So it's going to take several searches, John.
Mike, stay with us. Of course, when a situation like this takes place, people are looking for answers. They're sometimes looking for someone to blame. There was a question asked of the Homeland Security Secretary as to whether or not, there should have been more warning for this devastating flood in the Guadalupe River Valley. Here's what Kristi Noem had to say in her answer.
My background is, before I was in the secretary position here under the Trump administration, I was governor of South Dakota and served in Congress for 8 years before I was governor. And so I will tell you that for decades, for years, everybody knows that the weather is extremely difficult to predict, but also that the National Weather Service over the years at times has done well, and at times we have all wanted more time and more warning and more alerts and more notification. That is something, and one of the reasons that when President Trump took office, that he said he wanted to fix, and is currently upgrading the technology. And the National Weather Service has indicated that with that and NOAA, that we needed to renew this ancient system that has been left in place with the federal government for many, many years. And that is the reforms that are ongoing there. The timeline that I have, I don't oversee the National Weather Service. That's not under my department. But the timeline that I did receive from them was that the notifications started to look at its expansion for its limited flood impacts area that started on July 3rd at 1:18 p.m. The flood watch was issued. Although it was moderate, it wasn't to the extremes that it was, that when the system came over the area that it stalled, it was much more water, much like I think we experienced during Harvey, the same type of system that was unpredictable in the way that it reacted and the way that it stopped right here and dumped unprecedented amounts of rain that caused a flooding event like this.
That's Secretary Kristi Noem of the Department of Homeland Security. Mike, there probably couldn't have been a worse weekend for something like this to hit. It's a holiday weekend, and a lot of people are probably vacationing or, camping out along the river there.
Well, the Hill Country here is known for the wineries, the breweries, the live music, and it's a weekend getaway for a lot of people. And one of the ways you can do that on the cheap is to camp alongside of the river. There are a lot of Airbnbs, there are a lot of small hotels in the area. So one of the things that was brought up in an earlier briefing is the fact that it's impossible to tell just how many people are here and how many people haven't made it back to where they came from, Dallas or Austin or wherever they would be vacationing from. So you very well may start to get more missing persons reports as they don't show up from the holiday weekend, but also as they start to search the area for people who have been impacted by this flood. You could very well find more flooding victims. And one other thing that Secretary Noem brought up there was the early warning systems. We really have differing accounts. Judge Kelly, who was the top elected official here in Kerr County, said there was no early warning systems, despite the fact that devastating floods and deadly floods have rolled through here before. He said there was no early warning systems. We talked with some of the locals out here who said they did get early warning systems. They came to their cell phones, but they came too late. And one of the things I can tell you, just coming back from Israel with all the missile strikes, the way they have their cell phone warnings built in, it's impossible to ignore. John?
All right. Mike Tobin reporting live from the banks of the Guadalupe River. Mike, thank you.
I mean, what am I hearing here saying they didn't have alerts or they didn't get the alert early? What in the world? This ain't right. Whoever is in charge of those alerts needs to get their behind to work ASAP. Like, what in the world are you doing? People are losing their lives. What?
That massive downpour yesterday lifted the Guadalupe River more than 25 feet in less than an hour. At least 27 people are dead, 9 of them children, and officials warn that number may well go up. First responders, drones, and helicopters are working around the clock with a desperate search underway for at least 23 girls missing from a Christian camp on the shores of the Guadalupe River. Senior correspondent Mike Tobin is live in Kerrville, Texas with the latest. Mike.
And John, this shelter where I'm standing in a park is now loaded with debris because all of this was underwater yesterday before the Guadalupe River receded back into its banks, or at least close to its banks. We've seen the helicopters patrolling the river. We now know from the city manager that they're putting boots on the ground, old school style. They've got people walking the length of the river looking for victims, hoping for survivors. They're aided by people with local knowledge of where debris gets hung up when the river floods. As you mentioned, the official number of deceased victims is now 27, and we anticipate that that will rise. The number of campers missing is 27, and that is that group of girls who've been attending the Camp Mystic all-girls Christian camp. They have lost contact with the outside world. We know that some deceased have been located. There really isn't much reason to be optimistic about those missing girls. However, Congressman Chip Roy tells me there have been miraculous stories of survival.
One of the little girls from our school, thankfully, praise the Lord, was found. She floated on a mattress for 3 hours yesterday morning. And we just got the text notice that she survived, and we've located her and that she's safe and sound. So we're hoping for stories like that. But obviously, we're deeply concerned about the remaining little girls that we've not found.
Now, on Thursday, this area was bombarded with rain. On Friday, the Guadalupe River came up as much as 26 feet in 45 minutes. This area is prone to flooding. They had a very similar, very deadly flood 38 years ago. Still, Judge Rob Kelly, who's a chief elected official in Kirk County, called this the most dangerous river valley in the U.S., and still, there was no early warning. We did talk to an individual who said there was an early warning, but it came in just minutes before the river swelled at this dramatic level. Now, the known number of missing is standing at 27. What we're hearing from officials, there is a large unknown number because this is an area where people come in weekend, particularly on the holiday weekend. They camp down by the river. They stay at Airbnbs, and there really isn't a way to get a good idea of how many of those people are missing now. John?
Mike, how far above the river are you right now, would you estimate?
I'd say I'm about 15 feet above the river and about 15 feet below the highway, right in the middle. And all of this area was underwater. Some of the evidence you can tell by that is right next to the highway. There are fish that are in the lawn now.
Wow. It's my understanding that the camp sits kind of on a hill, which makes sense since the river is at the bottom of a valley. And the girls who were saved were up higher on, higher camping sites.
And there are a few camps where that happened, where the people got to the high ground. They ended up safe, but they were stranded because the roads in and out of these camps had been so badly damaged. So overnight, you had helicopters dropping them food and water. Hopefully, by the time daylight came through, we don't have an update on it yet. With some of the roads destroyed, they could get 4x4s or some other vehicles in there and rescue some of those people. There have been some 800 rescues so far, and we hope that they're in those numbers.
Yeah, we hope for more. We saw, you said that, there were warnings, but they came out very, very late. What kind of warnings are those? Do you know? Are they sirens? Are they, emergency broadcasts? What are they?
What we just got from someone who was local and who was in the area, and he actually got out only because he'd had an argument with his son and went home. And he came back to find all of his things destroyed. So he was lucky. But he said the warnings that he got came over his cell phone.
Wow. Mike Tobin, let's hope for.
Wow. Dear Lord.
A local update from officials in Central Texas right now. 27 dead, 18 adults, 9 children. The update given there. Congressman Chip Roy, also on hand, said that 160 plus air rescues have been part of all of this. The mayor of Kerrville, Texas, joining that press conference saying, today will be a hard day. Please pray for us. With that, we are now joined by Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who's here with us. Lieutenant Governor, thanks so much for joining us here. Can you give us an update on what you're seeing in the latest efforts there, and what more does Central Texas need from the state and from the federal government?
So thanks for having me on. This started yesterday morning very early when my phone started ringing. And at the time, I was acting governor. The governor returned to state last night. He broke off his trip and came back early from where he was. And so I was there all day, pretty much yesterday in Kerrville and our emergency center as we were walking through this in these early hours. And just to amplify what has been said, an incredible teamwork between the state and local officials. Early in the morning yesterday, we had hundreds of people on the ground, up to almost 500 very quickly. Helicopters in the air, drones in the air, to the point we really couldn't take any more helicopters because of the crowded space. You did not want another catastrophe. But everyone did the very best they could in this very tragic situation. This camp, for people who are around the country that don't know much about this camp, it started in 1926, and we have generations of people, grandmothers who went there, mothers who went there, daughters who went there, granddaughters who went there. This touches so much of the state because so many people are connected to it. And so this one camp was right where the heaviest rains came from above them and down. And to put this in perspective, Dalton, the city manager who you heard speak a few moments ago, he told me yesterday that he was out jogging at about 3:30 in the morning and not a drop of rain. And by the time he got home and got dressed, and the rain started coming and the water started coming down, within 45 minutes, the Guadalupe River increased to a height of 26 feet. 26 feet in 45 minutes, washing away everything in its path with the power of the water, because it had been dry. The rocks, when it's dry, that water just goes down like a chute, and so that water came powerfully hard, and it took out everything in its way. And one of the things we don't know is we don't know how many people were in tents on the side, in small trailers by the side, or in rented homes by the side, because it was going to be the 4th of July, a holiday. Of course, everyone had come to get their best place in front of the stage. And
when things like this happen, this is a natural disaster as far as we know. However, the only way we can blame the government is the response. Okay, so now let's see the response. Okay, it's about the response. You can't blame Trump for a natural disaster. This is, Mother Nature. However, let's see what the response is like. Okay, that's what we're gonna evaluate. It's about the response, because what could you do? I mean, are you gonna stop the rain from pouring down? No, you can't. But the response is what we will evaluate.
Along the river to enjoy the day. So we are focused on the girls in that camp first and foremost, but all the other lives that we know have been lost, and those we don't know yet because we don't have anyone reporting for the most part on them. I had a call this morning on my phone early from a family, a father who said, "I have my oldest daughter, but our youngest daughter is missing. They were both at camp, and I just need help in finding her." And his name was Doug, and to Doug and to everyone, we will not stop until we recover every person. We will not stop, no matter how long it takes.
Lieutenant Governor, you mentioned speaking to one of the parents there, that father. Have you had a chance to hear from any of the other parents from the kids at this camp? Because so much attention is focused now on finding these young children. These were 8, 9, 10-year-old girls, as I understand it.
Yeah, the Camp Mystic is kind of split into two sections, and the one section where the younger children were is where most of those missing persons came from in that area. I've got 8 grandkids. I've been up all night. I've been up 2 nights, actually. I couldn't sleep last night. The heartbreak. Governor Abbott and I were there till about, 10, 11 o'clock at night. I can't remember. But we were there, and it's unspeakable. It's just, there's no words that you can have for someone to lose.
Thank you to Kat. God bless you, Kat, for the super chat. She says, "Please bless these children."
As a child, and we've had our disasters in Texas, and we've had our times of loss in Texas, and major disasters. But the focus on the children here has been, I think, what touches everyone's heart, and it just makes you want to hug every parent. But you don't have words to say. This is where you have to rely on the Word of God. You have to stand on the foundation of your faith this is when you are tested. Whether you're a rescuer, I was flying back last night, and one of the young men sitting next to me on the plane was one of the divers. And I had asked him, I said, how many were you able to rescue today? And that was yesterday. And we had rescued, or they had rescued hundreds of yesterday, probably over 300. I don't know the exact count. But he was one who had to go down, and the person he rescued was already deceased and was 8 years old. And that will be with him forever. And so what makes this the additional tragedy is usually when there's a disaster, you know pretty quickly about the outcome of those you love. Were they injured, were they harmed, did they lose their life? In this case, they had to wait all day yesterday with lots of hope, and now we're in the recovery mode. Could we find a miracle and find someone somewhere in a tree somewhere? Pray that we do, but now we are still searching, still rescuing, but recovery at this point. It's very hard, as the mayor said.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick of Texas, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Pray.
I mean, look, I don't want to go down that route. We're gonna talk about it for a long, long time. Shout out to everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Shout out to the esteemed member Sandra. God bless you for being here. Here we go.
Well, President Trump isn't the only one who says they're concerned about Zohran Mamdani, as DHS Secretary Kristi Noem is reportedly mulling a probe into the socialist candidate during the Homeland Security Advisory Council's first meeting this week. My next guest is the chairman of that council, Republican South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster. Governor, thanks for joining us today. So tell us a little bit, what is this council, and is there going to be an investigation of the Democratic candidate here?
Well, investigation, we don't do investigations. We think and give advice, do research, and gather information. So that'll be up to Kristi Noem or others. But what we do is can be up to 40 people. Right now we have 27. They come from all sorts of backgrounds and different types of work, some with a lot of political experience, others without it, some with international experience, and it's a grand group, but our purpose is to meet, to study the issues, and bring a perspective from outside the department to inside the department to inform the Department of Homeland Security.
What do you think about a candidate like Mamdani winning a primary here in New York? And, you know, whatever you think about the guy's policies, wouldn't investigating him be the exact type of lawfare that, you know, the president complained about over the last couple of years?
Well, my advice, what we do is give advice, and my advice would be don't vote for somebody who thinks like that.
All right, Governor McMaster, back to our breaking news this hour. We had 27 lives lost in Texas due to these flash floods. There is typically, when there are disasters like this, a pretty coordinated response. Secretary Noem will be there shortly, according to President Trump. What kind of response can you expect to get as a governor from the federal government here, even though much of this first line response is typically coming from state and local officials, right?
Well, it depends on the state. In South Carolina, we have a well-equipped and highly experienced team. Everyone gets involved, all aspects of law enforcement, and we had the National Guard and the State Guard, which is a volunteer organization as well. But of course, FEMA will be there, but there'll be a lot of mechanical help. There'll be, I know there'll be volunteers from all over Texas, and I saw Lieutenant Governor Patrick a moment ago, and I know he and Governor Abbott are deeply involved. But this is the kind of thing where everybody that can help shows up. So the federal government, of course, has assets, but remember, FEMA is mainly just a money organization. They bring money for things. They do have some equipment. They help with housing, but you'll have to depend primarily on your local authorities for helicopters, for trucks, for divers, for all those sorts of things. But that is a tragic experience they're going through, and we pulling for them, praying for them. I hope it doesn't keep happening anywhere around the country. This is it's a tragic thing for the people of Texas and everybody in the whole country.
You've got a tropical storm that's forming off the coast of your state right now. What message do you want to send to the citizens of South Carolina to prepare for that? And what's the government doing there to make sure that people are safe if that does make land in South Carolina?
Well, the main thing we do is information. At this point, we're watching it very closely. We have an emergency management division. And again, all those people I just mentioned a few seconds ago are all involved and highly on alert. And the main thing we do is give out good information. We can't stop a storm from coming in, but we can be prepared for it. And I'll mention this too, that terrible flood that we're seeing there in Texas, that's the kind of emergency, the kind of disaster that can be created by our enemies, either outside of this country or coming into this country. And that is why Department of Homeland Security is so vital and important, because we know it's a dangerous world. We don't know if there's sleeper cells in here. We don't know. It doesn't take much to disable a dam or to blow up a water system. There are a lot of things people can do if they mean us harm. The technology is certainly out there, and we definitely have enemies. So that's one reason that the people in my state, and I think around the country, are so delighted that President Trump has been reelected, that he's in charge, that he's moving fast. He's got a lot of people helping him, and I think the country is going to be stronger, more prosperous, and happier in days to come.
All right, South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster, thanks so much for joining us, commenting, of course, on those awful storms and floods that are occurring in Texas, as well as there's a tropical storm forming off the coast of South Carolina. Thanks so much.
Hey, what we need to be doing now as Americans is praying for Texas, not pointing fingers and blaming the leadership and stuff. No. Of course, we are waiting on a response for sure, okay? However, before response, you should be praying for Texas. Let me out here saying, oh, look at what you voted for.
One of the hardest hit spots from the flooding, as Mike mentioned, is Camp Mystic. It's in Kerr County. Camp Mystic did not evacuate before the floods hit. Joining us now for tonight's big close-up is Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for being here. Tell me for a moment, I know we still have outstanding campers that are missing. Have the families been contacted yet? Have you turned up any of these girls? I know these families are frantic. In fact, I know one of them.
Yeah, Raymond, let me paint a quick picture for you. There are about 15 camps along the Guadalupe that we were checking yesterday when this all began. And Camp Mystic was the one where we were not able to account for everyone. And now that number is 27. There were 750 campers in just that camp alone. There were several thousand along the river. And the gentleman named Delton, who's the city manager in Kerrville, said he was out jogging at 3:30 in the morning and there wasn't a drop of rain and the river was normal. And by the time he showered and got dressed for the morning, suddenly the river rose, as Mike Tobin just said, about 26 to 30 feet in 45 minutes with the power of a freight train running through what was a dry creek, just a rapid pace, destroying everything in its way. So one of the things that Camp Mystic did yesterday is they had the phone numbers of everyone that was at their camp. And so they called those that were missing. They didn't try to call the 750 and say your daughters are safe. They called, which I thought was very smart, and they called the ones who were missing and said, we are searching for them. So we had a good idea very early of where we were. We surged 400 to 500 people in immediately. Helicopters, we had as many helicopters in the air as we could get safely with drones, because you get too many, you have another disaster in the air. The weather was overcast, even raining yesterday, part of the day. And they rescued, our brave swimmers rescued over 800 people yesterday, many of those by helicopter, but we still are missing 27.
God bless them.
Well, Lieutenant Governor, you have been in our prayers. Thank you for joining. It's always good to see you. Heavy rain on Friday morning caused the Guadalupe River to rise nearly 30 feet in 45 minutes. Yeah. How wide is the search perimeter, and are enough resources being provided by the local, state, and federal government to assist in the search and rescue?
Yeah, Riley, we are prayer partners. So you know where my heart is, I know where your heart is, and everyone on the panel. This is the time you stand on your rock of faith. This is the time you're tested. We've surged now. There are close to 1,200 people working in shifts, doing everything possible. And the president has put his full weight of the federal government to give us help. Kristi Noem, I talked to her earlier this morning before she came into Kerrville. And so we've gotten all the support we want. We have the best emergency management team in the world, I believe. We had pre-positioned some assets there to help us because we knew rain was coming, but you can never predict exactly where and what. It was over about 150-mile area the storm could have hit. And what happened at 5 o'clock in the morning or so yesterday was the worst possible storm in the worst possible place to the most vulnerable people, adults in campsites and trailers not knowing what hit them, and these girls in these camps. There's a boys camp, girls camp, co-ed camps, but it was Camp Mystic. If I could tell you real quick, I just got a text before I came on air, and we're going to hear these stories more and more from parents who text me. They were bringing their little girl who was spared home, and they asked her what happened. And I'm not using any names, but she said they were awakened, and the water was at the door. The camp counselor took a rock and smashed out the window. They climbed out the window in bare feet and nothing but a nightgown on, in neck-high water. They walked through the water. They got to another position where there was some dry land. Then they moved to another position. She said, I don't know how we made it. She had her name on the back of her clothes she was wearing, but she wasn't even in her own clothes at the time. And so these little girls and these camp counselors, you're going to hear heroic story after heroic story. These camp counselors are teenagers themselves for the most part. And they eventually got to higher ground where a helicopter came and rescued them. We have a story of a 27-year-old young man in one of the houses along the riverbank. He saved his mother, and I believe it was his aunt or grandmother, but he was swept away. There was heroism yesterday everywhere. And these camp counselors, again, 750 girls in this camp, and we have 27 missing, and we're not going to give up looking for them. We're not going to give up looking for them. And we're all in. And we're praying for these families.
Lieutenant Governor, you talk about the heroism of camp counselors and the girls, and it's absolutely true. Yes. And it's silver lining at best, I guess, but it does show what human beings are capable of. You've got every type of agency known to man there helping. The first responders are probably, I would imagine, in the thousands or more. We spoke with the Coast Guard this morning. They said they were primarily helping from the air. With the flood still happening, are you able to get into the water with the search for these young girls?
Yeah, we have divers in the water, and it's still a fluid situation. You can see the water still running down quickly. When I was there all day yesterday, it was still moving pretty swiftly. So, you have so much debris you see above the water. It's unbelievable, the damage, but you also have debris under the water. So it's this. And I'm saying rescue and recovery. We're doing both. Yeah. If we find a child or an adult alive, we're rescuing them. And if we find someone, a deceased individual, then we're going to recover them. So we are not giving up this rescue attempt. We're holding out for miracles that can still happen. I'm overwhelmed. I have 8 grandchildren, guys, and I talked to one of the parents of the missing children this morning who texted me, and all I could do is just say, I got to hug you when I see you. There are no words except, again, we stand on the rock of our faith, and we'll do everything in our power to find your child, hopefully alive, and to find your child if not. And so these 27, and again, there were many visitors there. This was a 4th of July weekend. It's a town of 20,000 in the middle of kind of central Texas, in the hill country as we call it. But there were thousands of visitors. So we don't even know, in terms of people along the banks and the tents and the rental properties, we don't even know all of those people yet. But there were I do know there was an entire family swept away. The soccer coach at the high school, his wife and himself and the children. I know of another family, the entire family swept away. This is the hardest event I've ever been involved in 10 years as Lieutenant Governor. We've had a lot of tragedies, but anytime you have children involved, it's the worst. And we've had children involved in other tragedies. But the parents who who didn't know, that's what hurt the most. Many of the parents knew, and again, all the other camps that were down the river, they accounted for everyone. It was this one camp and this one area of the camp that was low, where most of the young girls, 10, 11, and 12, are missing or saved or deceased. So it's a very hard time. I flew back last night late, and I was next to one of the divers, and I said to him, I don't want to mention his name. I said, "Did you rescue anyone today?" He said, "Only those deceased." This is hard on everyone. It's hard on these families, and I just want the families to know we will not stop till we find your child.
Absolutely. Lieutenant Governor, I want to ask you about Camp Mystic. According to the Associated Press, both AccuWeather and the National Weather Service sent out warnings about flash floodings before the devastation. There was a general flood warning that went out about 12 hours before and a flash flood warning that went out about 3 hours before, but it was sent out very early in the morning. Now, AccuWeather said that the camps in the region, including Camp Mystic, should have been evacuated. So did Texas officials do enough to warn campers of the storm, and should they have been evacuated sooner?
I will leave all those questions to be answered later. Right now, we're trying to rescue anyone we can find alive and recover those that are deceased. But I'll say this, that the National Weather Forecast predicted minor flooding, minor event a day before. And when that warning did go out, and I have all the charts I've seen. When that warning went out, it was about 12 hours before, and the flash flood was like 3 hours before 5 in the morning. So we'll go back and examine all of that. But one thing always to remember, and I don't know if there's fault. If there's fault, we'll find it and we'll fix it. But here's what I do know, is that storms are very unpredictable. And up until the day before, they were saying minor. And then they picked it up a little bit more. And it really wasn't until the 4th that they picked it up a larger number. And that's what people look at, is the National Weather Forecast. And that storm could have moved, it could have moved 50 miles in the last 20 minutes. I've seen hurricanes move in an hour.
Dan, this is kind of flood alley.
It was a watch,
though.
and so we'll see what the warnings and what they were and what they should have been. But we'll look at that after. Right now, let's focus on these 27 and others.
No.
Dear Lord, I hope everybody affected by this flood is consoled by the King of Kings, because at the end of the day, it's like losing the family member to flooding. It's like, man, what are you going to do? It's just crazy. May God comfort all of these people. I'm on Google right now and I typed in what city in America has no disasters. Okay, so AI overview tells me there isn't a city in the United States with absolutely no natural disasters. And it says, however, Portland, Oregon, and cities in Ohio like Akron and Cleveland are frequently cited as having low risks for many natural disasters. Other cities with low disaster risk include Alaska, Vancouver, Washington, and Casper, Wyoming. So, back to Texas, okay? May God comfort these people. That's what I was talking about, C. Shelley. I wasn't saying like, no, okay, because C. Shelley has done 20 years research on this. So, I mean, I don't know nothing about this stuff. You know, hopefully the response is much more robust, considering what we got when we were affected by Hurricane Helene, $750. I hope that's not what they're going to get in Texas. Well, now, this isn't Joe Biden. This is President Donald J. Trump. And I know Texas is not going to get $750. So I'm waiting on the response from the Commander-in-Chief.
Our prayers are with you. Yeah, this is Flood Alley, and I know not long ago they had similar tragedy. 10 people lost their lives, but it was in the same region. So, you know, these flash floods come suddenly, and look, our prayers are with you, all those first responders, and of course the families who are anguished. You know, some are sitting awaiting news of their loved one and their child. So our
Raymond,
prayers
if people
go out
want to
them.
help, they can go to the city of Kerrville and donate. There's a page there. Again, we're focused on life right now, but after the fact, there's tremendous property damage. And so if people want to help, but prayer, number one, pray for these families and for these missing children and for those that were missing who were along the banks, the adults there and children as well.
God bless them all, and God bless you. Texas.
All right. Full press interview and briefing from Kristi Noem and the governor of Texas.
I want to thank everybody for gathering with us here today, and we are especially pleased to have with us today Secretary Kristi Noem from the Department of Homeland Security, who will share with you a lot of information herself. Before I do pass the mic to her, there are several things that I want to announce as well as some things to share. First, what I have observed in this community over the past 24 hours is what I call quintessential Texas. When Texans face a challenge, we come together, we unite. And that's exactly what's happened over the past 24 to 48 hours in this community. Nothing more than extraordinary devastation. And the worst thing that could have happened in this community fell upon it. They could have fallen apart. They could have fought against each other. But instead, they understand the importance of unity. And it's what Texans do. It's what we will continue to do. Along those lines, something else to double down on what I said last night. We will be relentless in going after and ensuring that we locate every single person who's been a victim of this flooding event. We're not going to stop today or tomorrow. We will stop when the job is completed. Between now and whenever that day arrives when the job is completed, this is a 24/7 operation, day and night, because we know that we are looking for Texans and Americans, and we put them as our top priority, and we will find every one of them. Additionally, I want to let you know that overnight, there was an increase in storm damage and rainfall and flooding in other regions of the state of Texas that were in addition to the ones that were in the disaster declaration that I made yesterday. What I'm going to sign today is an expanded disaster declaration that adds the following counties to what I signed yesterday. This disaster declaration includes Bexar County, Burnett, Caldwell, Guadalupe, Travis, and Williamson counties. We will continue to add counties as needed as conditions either worsen or improve in counties across the state of Texas. We will ensure that every asset and resource the state has is going to be made available to every county that's the subject of this disaster declaration. Also, I've had the opportunity to visit not just with Secretary Noem, but other officials in the Trump administration. We know that President Trump, he loves Texas for one. He's deeply concerned about all the families who've been affected, but also knows about the magnitude of the devastation that we're suffering. And so what I'm about to sign now is going to be the first step in a process. This document is a request for a federal disaster declaration coming from the governor to seek the immediate and ongoing help of the federal government. I want to express my gratitude in advance to President Trump for his entire administration for their devotion to the state of Texas. He always tells me about his love for the people of the state of Texas, his deep concern for them, and I know that he's feeling that now as much as he ever has. And there's no better way to show that than the fact that he wanted to ensure that he and his entire administration was represented here today by Secretary Kristi Noem, to whom I would like to turn things over at this time.
Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. And I want to thank Governor Abbott for his leadership, and know that President Trump is absolutely heartbroken by what has happened here in Texas, and the loss of life is absolutely devastating to him and Melania. This morning I talked with him several times, and he wanted to make sure that all of you know how much he loves Texas, how much he's grieving for your families that have lost someone, and the beautiful children that we're still looking for and hoping to return to their families, and that he is absolutely committed to using all the resources of the federal government to help unify families, rescue all those that were still missing, and return those who maybe we will recover back to their families as soon as possible, and that we will be here walking alongside each other and helping throughout this entire crisis. And know that I'm extremely grateful as well for the leadership of Nim Kidd, who's a fantastic emergency operations manager and has been well known throughout this country for leading through such a time as this. And this tragic situation is something that is unprecedented. We recognize that at the federal level. We also recognize that when something like this happens to a community, happens to a state, that the best responders are those locally, because it's your family members, it's your community members that are being impacted, and you can respond quickly. And the role of the state is to run and manage that emergency, but the federal government needs to be here for the support and extra resources on the ground as well. And that is what we are doing and what President Trump has dedicated to continue to do. I've visited with the president already about this federal disaster declaration that the governor was going to sign here this morning, and he has indicated that he will honor that and that he will accept that. So that response and that relief will be coming. And we also have had assets here on the ground since the beginning of this crisis started, since this weather event did start. And even before it came, we were alerted. We did have Coast Guard assets here that were helping to rescue people. We're thankful for the airframe that showed up and those coasties that were here walking alongside our DPS, and the emergency responders that were here, the Texas assets that were deployed already, and that coordination was seamless, and I appreciate them for putting that request in right away. We also had our BORTAC team from Customs and Border Protection out here helping with rescues. They are a specialized, trained force to come in these types of situations and bring their skill set to bear. That is a resource that's incredibly important to the Department of Homeland Security, but also in these types of situations when we need emergency management response. We also did have a CBP advisory interdiction specialist here that was helping with some coordination of air assets that has been present. And then we are looking at the other entities that are under the department, what can be utilized. And of course, FEMA is standing at an enhanced level right now, which means that they are plugged in to the State Operations Center. We are engaged, and then as this response goes forward, that their role will continue to be filled as it always is in these situations, and will be timely and responsive as to what the governor requests and what is needed here on the ground. I do know that the state of Texas is amazing in how it responds to disasters. Not every state is like that. Many states do not do what the people of Texas do. And you are an example to the nation of getting through these difficult times, but also know that you're not alone, that you have the entire country's hearts and are with you and are walking alongside you. And at the department, we will continue to bring more resources. We just, at the request of a previous conversation less than an hour ago, in visiting with him and with the governor, requested more fixed-wing aircraft from Coast Guard to come and help us making sure that we're going out and locating individuals as fast as possible that we know are still missing, and that we also will send more airframe as far as helicopters that have the ability to come in, and some will be equipped, and the fixed wings with thermals so they can continue to work all night long. Some of the assets that other agencies may offer don't have that kind of equipment, but the Coast Guard does have it, and so that will be deployed so that the search and rescue efforts don't stop even when it does get dark at night. We'll continue to stay engaged, and I'll be here. I'm going to go up to the camp, Mystic, and I'm going to go around town and spend some time here today and make sure that when I am calling and talking to the president throughout the day that he has timely information and that the requests that are coming here from the leadership on the ground are met immediately, and that we can take care of these families and take care of these folks right away. We do know the #1 priority now is people, is making sure we're finding people as fast as possible and we're returning them to their families. And then also, throughout the process, we'll get into what damage was done to public infrastructure, what may have been done to, I know we have 1,800 people that are still without power. What I understand is people still have water, but we do have damage to bridges and to roads. Thankfully, dams held. But all of that is an assessment that we'll continue to work with you on to make sure that you recover as quickly as possible. So, again, thank you all for being strong and being an example for people. Someone told me a long time ago, over 30 years ago, that to never get angry on behalf of yourself, get angry on behalf of the other people, to always go out and get up every day and go work for other people and help them. And so I know many of you that are out there responding and helping your neighbors had losses too. You're hurting because you're grieving somebody that may have been lost. We were created to serve people. God created us to serve each other. And now is a wonderful time to go find somebody you can help, somebody that you can take care of and get them through this process. And that will make us stronger and better into the future. So our prayers are with you. President Trump wants you to know that he and Melania are praying for you and love you. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the governor.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the assets and resources you and the Trump administration are providing. One thing that Secretary Noem mentioned was the fact that recoveries and rescues are being made. And what has happened over the past 36 hours is really amazing. When you look at what the local officials have done, working in collaboration with multiple state agencies as well as our federal partners, in 36 hours, they have rescued or recovered more than 850 people, some clinging to trees to save their lives, others in other precarious situations. It's just sheer heroism, the way that we've seen our first responders rescue so many people. And now I would like to turn things over to Senator John Cornyn.
My thanks to President Trump and Secretary Noem for responding so quickly to Governor Abbott's request for a federal disaster declaration. And particularly, Madam Secretary, thank you for being here in person. It's really important, and I think sends a very important message. Unfortunately, I've been to a number of disasters over the years across the state of Texas, as has the governor, and none of these get any easier. But I have to tell you, I remain incredibly impressed with Governor Abbott's leadership and the incredible work that the Texas Department of Emergency Management under the leadership of Nim Kidd do. They are literally the best in the nation. And what Secretary Noem said about other states not responding as well is true. It's something we should be very proud of and grateful for, particularly at a time like this. And then there are the men and women who are standing behind us here, who have been doing the work on the ground, not waiting for the federal government to show up. They've been getting the work done, as the governor pointed out. And we are all together, we are praying for those who have lost loved ones and are grieving. We are celebrating with those who have been reacquainted with and rejoined with their family members. And, you know, a few years ago, the governor will remember this, up in West Texas after a terrible disaster, a county commissioner there said something to me that I think is appropriate at a time like this. He said, being from Texas is not just about where you're from, it's who your family is. And so when things like this happen, we come together as a family, as Texans, in a way that I'm very proud of. But it's very important because this is who our family is, and we owe it to them. And I take the governor at his word that he and his team will be relentless in supporting all of the efforts at the local and the federal level until every last person is accounted for and those families are reunited with their loved ones. But Governor, thank you again for your leadership. Secretary Noem, it means a lot to us for you to be here. And we appreciate Governor Abbott and Chief Kidd, but we appreciate President Trump and you responding so quickly to the governor's request for disaster declaration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now Congressman Chip Roy.
Thank you, Governor. Thanks all of you for being here. Before I was crazy enough to run for Congress, my family and I started a tradition of coming down to Kerrville for 4th of July. And we've been coming here every summer since my kids were little. They're now 14 and 15 to see Robert Earl and whoever else was playing. And pictures have been popping up my phone, the ones that, kick on the anniversary of different shows, like a bunch of different shows over the last decade. It hits home. It really does. It hits personally for those of us for whom this is our community, our home. My family lives in Hays County, but we spend a lot of time in Kerr. And I can't say enough about the local leadership and what they've been doing in the face of this disaster. Your city manager has done an extraordinary job. Your sheriff has done an extraordinary job. I could go down the list of everybody and I'll leave somebody out. But I can't say enough about what they've done. And then I can't say enough about the governor and about NIM and about the leadership that has come from the state and from DPS and from TDEM to get this done and to do what we're in the process of still doing to react to this unfortunate circumstance. It's been professional and it's been extremely well done. And I have to say, the secretary yesterday, I reached out to her office. I think it might be 15 minutes later that I got a call from the secretary, immediately responding to requests. I talked to NIM about the need for Army Corps support and some other stuff. Immediately talked to the secretary about it. The collaboration, the teamwork, local, state, and federal. I cannot overstate the extent to which everybody set aside turfs or any of those kinds of things to deliver for the people of Texas. Now, we're far from having finished the job. We're all here knowing that we still have work to do. We're still prayerful. We're still hopeful. Obviously, there's a lot here that we're dealing with, but I'm deeply appreciative for that coordination. And last point that I'll just make is, and I've said this a little bit earlier this morning, there's going to be a lot of finger pointing and a lot of second guessing and Monday morning quarterbacking. And I just wanted to pick up on what I think the governor said about 850 something individuals that were moved quickly in this circumstance and in a once in a century flood where you get 12, 14 inches, where you get a 26 to 30 foot increase in water in the course of an hour and a half at 4 to 6 o'clock in the morning on a holiday. And that's what we're dealing with in these circumstances and where those camps are. There's a lot of people saying why and how, and I understand that. And I understand why parents would be asking those questions and all of the media. But where we are right now in terms of what we've done to be able to protect people, move them, get them out of the camps, and the heroic efforts of people that worked in those camps, directors of the camps, people who own the camps, who not just risked their lives, gave their lives to try to go save the lives of those kids. That's who they are as Texans. And I'm so proud of that. And I'm so proud of the work that everyone's done to do that. And now we just got to finish the job and be with the people. And importantly, pray for the families who have lost their loved ones.
Thank you. Now, Kerr County Judge Kelly.
Yes, I think I'm the only one at this table that lives on the Guadalupe River. And our properties were devastated, and I barely got home yesterday. I started my morning ushering in a crew with a skid steer and 2 dump trailers, 3 trucks, 9 men to start trying to rebuild what went down the river. I then had the opportunity to come here, where I was asked to go over to the funeral home. I had issues over there. I am a 50-year lawyer and a mediator and arbitrator, and we had some issues that needed attention. And I got to see firsthand many of the body bags, and it breaks my heart. And coming back from that, we had an opportunity to go on a helicopter ride with the senator and the mayor and inspect the devastation. We flew all the way up the South Fork, all the way to Criders. And you can see what's happened, and it's going to be a long time before we're ever going to be able to clean it up, much less rebuild it. But there's nothing on the other side of Criders. It's just hill country. And we didn't know. We know we get rains. We know the river rises. But nobody saw this coming. And what I really have to report to you is it was a godsend to be able to get out of the helicopter, walk back into this building, and sit down with these people and cooperate, arm in arm, hand in hand, to do the best we can to work the process. The rescue has gone as well as can be expected. It's getting time now for the recovery. And that's going to be a long, toilsome task for us. And what I would reiterate that I've heard others say is as long as we stay together, we'll get this done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now, Mayor Herrick.
I want to start off by saying thank you on behalf of the city of Kerrville and our 25,000 citizens. I want to say thank you to the federal government, the state government, county government. You know, as I look around the room in the Emergency Operations Center, I don't see different agencies from the state, the federal, the county. I see one team working together. It's important for our community to know it's one team. We will rescue those in peril, and we will find those who are lost. I continue to ask everyone who sees this today to pray for Kerrville and Kerr County. We need your prayers. And thank God we have the help of the federal government and the state government in this horrible, horrible crisis. Thank God for our country, and thank God for all the help we are receiving today. Thank you.
Now, TDM Chief Nimkid.
Thank you, Governor. My heart breaks. It's broken for those families that have lost their loved ones, and that fuels our drive to continue to search for them, and we will not stop until we find every one of them. I have to start by thanking our local first responders. Those men and women on the streets live here, they work here, their families are here, yet they got on the truck and they got in the car and they got in the ambulance and they went out and they did everything they could to save their neighbors. You also have volunteers all over this county that do the job for free, that were out there working to save lives, many times putting their own lives and their property at risk. Our state partners have been phenomenal, nothing short. Madam Secretary, your federal team has been nothing short of remarkable and impressive. I'm grateful for that. Every time I've reached out to you or your staff or Acting Administrator Richardson or the Acting Regional Administrator, I don't think the phone has rang twice before you've answered. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for being here with us. Life safety continues to be our #1 priority. We will continue the search until all those that are missing are found. We will start cleanup and property damage assessments as soon as possible. Our teams from FEMA have been in the State Emergency Operations Center since before we started operating on this event. They are exactly where we need them to be, doing exactly what we need them to be doing. Our Border Patrol partners have been here, and I'm so grateful for the U.S. Coast Guard. Acting Administrator Richardson and Regional Administrator Stoller have been great partners to us. We continue to work forward. And if I may, I'd just like to run across a few more of the numbers. 1,331 state additional personnel that have been added to this response on top of all your local responders, over 906 state assets here. That's 125 from our agency, 172 from the Urban Search and Rescue Team at Texas Task Force 1, over 160 from the Department of Public Safety, over 250 from the Texas Department of Transportation, 170 from the Texas Wildlife Department, Military Department 136, and the A&M Forest Service here with 115, and almost 190 people on the health and medical side. Governor, our team stands ready to assist this community.
Thank you very much. One last thing, and that is there is a word that's been the most common word that's been spoken over the past 36 hours, and that is the word prayer. It's been repeated by the people who are watching this as we speak right now. It's repeated often on social media, through phone calls, through texts. And those prayers are answered in so many ways. Answered by that child who was being swept down the river and happened to find a tree to cling on and was able to continue with uncommon strength to be able to remain clinging to that tree until a helicopter was able to descend upon her and lift her out of that harrowing situation. It could have been the reason why water stopped rising into a home or a cabin or something that would have caused an entire building to float away. It could be the reason why there have been so many people who have been located wherever they were down the river basin. It could be something that prevented somebody from getting into the water to begin with. All we know is that prayer does work. Your prayers have made a difference. We ask for continued prayers as we continue our efforts to locate everybody who's been affected by this, and pray so much for the families who have lost a loved one, who are going through challenging times that they never imagined on the 3rd of July that something like this would happen. Prayer matters. And we thank God Almighty. God has blessed Texas and will continue to bless our great state. We'll take a few questions.
Have the numbers changed? 27 dead and 27 missing from Camp Mystic.
Sure.
What I can tell you is there's still 27 missing. We have recovered some additional bodies at this time. We're trying to identify at this time. What I can tell you, an update, there's 32 deceased. 18 of those are adults and 14 are children. 5 of the adults remain unidentified and 3 children remain unidentified. We are still working on that this time. As I said earlier this morning, the numbers are going to continue to change. They're going to continue to change till we're done. It's been a very good day as far as being out there and being able to do some things, and we've got a lot done.
Chief, early on there was a lot of conflicting information about the search, about the number of fatalities, the missing, even a lot of families and parents were rightfully concerned and more importantly confused about all this information. We just heard the judge refer to this as a shift from rescue to recovery. Can you clarify what that means? Are we talking about these missing people no longer believed to be alive?
You'll need the judge to answer that piece. Our state assets and local partners are continuing to search for live victims.
Is there any indication that there are still people out there alive? Any evidence?
History would tell us that after a certain time period, those chances diminish, and we can talk about all of the numbers and the metrics on that. Our hope and prayer is that there are still people alive that are out there, and we are still actively searching for them, and we will continue. And listen, that will turn into recovery at some point, and none of us want to put a time period on that right now. But when you talk to the men and women that are up there in those helicopters and out in those boats and walking the ground, they're looking for live people right now and doing everything they can to continue this search as fast as possible.
And Judge, just a moment to clarify, because we want to be very clear with especially families and parents that are watching this. What makes you feel like this has gone from rescue to potential recovery? Because there is a difference.
We will eventually get to the recovery.
2 more questions.
Well, we're going to do more than 2 more questions. I want to say this. My instruction to every state agency involved in this is to assume everybody who is missing is alive, and there's a need for speed. Not just every hour, every minute counts, which is why there's people in the air, people in the water, people on the ground right now, because they're looking to save every last life, and we will not give up that effort.
Two more questions.
Where is the research happening and where are the challenges?
I live in Kerrville. Why was the National Weather Service not pinging their phones before 7 o'clock this day of 4th of July? And either federal people can answer that maybe for us. I got updates at 7 o'clock. First one I heard. And I've heard updates throughout the week, but not before 7 o'clock in the morning. Wasn't that a fundamental failure of the federal government's responsibility to keep us safe?
Well, you know, my background is before I was in the secretary position here under the Trump administration, I was governor of South Dakota and served in Congress for 8 years before I was governor. And so I will tell you that for decades, for years, everybody knows that the weather is extremely difficult to predict, but also that the National Weather Service over the years at times has done well, and at times we have all wanted more time and more warning and more alerts and more notification. That is something, and one of the reasons that when President Trump took office, that he said he wanted to fix, and is currently upgrading the technology, and the National Weather Service has indicated that with that and NOAA that we needed to renew this ancient system that has been left in place with the federal government for many, many years, and that is the reforms that are ongoing there. The timeline that I have, I don't oversee the National Weather Service, that's not under my department, but the timeline that I did receive from them was that the notifications started to look at its expansion for its limited flood impacts area that started on July 3rd at 1:18 p.m. The flood watch was issued. Although it was moderate, it wasn't to the extremes that it was, that when the system came over the area that it stalled, it was much more water, much like I think we experienced during Harvey, the same type of system that was unpredictable in the way that it reacted and the way that it stopped right here and dumped unprecedented amounts of rain that caused a flooding event like this. They continue to elevate and up their notifications. You know, when your notification hit your phone, sir, I'm sorry, I can't speak to when that is, but I do carry your concerns back to the federal government and to President Trump, and we will do all we can to fix those kinds of things that may have felt like a failure to you and to your community members. But we know that everybody wants more warning time, and that's why we're working to upgrade the technologies that have been neglected by far too long to make sure that families have as much advanced notice as possible. But
one more question, folks.
Can you please get into the search efforts and where that's happening and what the challenges are?
Question was search efforts.
Where it's happening, challenges, what it's looking like.
Yeah, the entire river is being searched from the northernmost impact all the way as we run down. You have assets in the air that are still doing searches, you have boats that are in the water doing searches, and you have ground crews doing searches. As the water recedes, new areas being uncovered and searched, and you have human and canine that are working those banks and will continue. It's a grid situation where we've got maps in there in the EOC where you can see what group is assigned to what area and reporting back to command if they find or if they continue to clear. And that process is going to keep going. We are not stopping until we find everyone that's missing.
Great, thank you, everyone. That's all we got time for.
Go ahead.
As far as the resources people who are trying to recover, we have FEMA, we have the state. What can people depend on from the federal government and the state government in this time of need? And there's a lot of that.
well, as in every emergency situation, the local emergency responders put together what the request is through the state, and the state coordinates all of the response and what assets may be necessary and makes a request to us. So now that the governor has already requested this federal disaster declaration, he will start to tell us what the needs are, and the federal government will do all that we can to support.
Will there be direct assistance?
Well, there already has been direct assistance. I mean, when you look at having Coast Guard assets here on the ground, we just requested more assets to be here, Border Patrol here. If there's more individuals and federal law enforcement officers, if we need, any assets that I may have under my purview, I've made available to NIM, and so he knows that if he needs something, it'll be here.
Great, thank you. Everyone. Appreciate it. Thank you, folks.
All we can do is pray for Texas. Pray for Texas right now. That's all we can do, yo.
Thank y'all again for being here. Those who don't know, Larry Letha, Kirk County Sheriff. How we're going to run this, I'm going to talk a little bit, and then the city manager talk. We're going to take very few questions. Starting tomorrow, we're going to do 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. tomorrow for y'all. We're doing the best we can to get you as much information as fast as we can. As I tell you today, and I expect tomorrow and the next couple of days, information's changing rapidly and quickly. Got a few notes here. We continue to have hundreds of first responders on the ground, water, in this search and rescue process. We have a lot of people here. We got a lot of help. We're very fortunate. Here's some new updated numbers for y'all. As of 5:30, we have recovered 43 deceased individuals in Kirk County. Among these who are deceased, we have 28 adults and 15 children. 12 adults pending identification and 5 children are pending identification at this time. Our missing persons call center is open to those reporting missing loved ones. The phone number is 830-258-1111. Repeating, 830-258-1111. We also are accepting these reports via email at floodrecovery@co.ker.tx.us. Repeating, floodrecovery@co.ker.tx.us. Please provide the last known location, identifying information if possible. We appreciate the assistance we're receiving from all levels of government, from local agencies to state and federal agencies responding. I tell you, the governor has assured us, along with the federal government, that we will have all the resources we need, and we do have that. We've got all the resources we need. We're in really good shape to keep going for several more days. I want to tell y'all something. I appreciate y'all's cooperation. We will try to get you as much updated information as we can starting tomorrow at 10 and 3 o'clock. Once again, as your Kerr County Sheriff, I assure you we're going to do everything along with our partners, and we'll be on this till we find the last body. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our city manager, Dalton Rice.
So, he said 43 people total, now confirmed dead. 15 of those are children. Let's continue listening.
She's out with the teams, just kind of checking on everybody. Just like everybody else, we all need to take, downtime to include y'all. So make sure, y'all are taking care of yourselves as well. We are in a marathon, and we got to make sure we always think about that and look after each other. So a couple updates. Since 6 a.m. this morning, we've had a combined primary clear, so aerial and ground, of about 100-meter distance on either side of the Guadalupe River from 1 mile north of Camp Mystic up through Hunt and Ingram. So we talked about that briefly this morning. Excuse me. We talked about that briefly this morning. So 100 meters on each side, they are continuing operations on that. We are also working on operations within the city of Kerrville as well, again, along the riverbanks as, since the waters have receded some. We are working on, again, we talked about downtime. We are working on locations for first responders to make sure that they do have, their adequate downtime and their rest. We're constantly going through kind of shift management cycles to make sure that our first responders and our crews and teams are taken care of. Public Works, so water is looking good. We've identified some leaks. We've been able to shut those leaks down or isolate those leaks. We will be likely operating off of well water probably for the next foreseeable about 4 weeks is what we're projecting. So we're not going to be pulling surface water for about 4 weeks. With these type of events, there's a lot of debris, there's a lot of chemicals, a lot of gasoline, a lot of other contaminants that are in there. We are working with TCEQ and other partners in there to make sure that we get these issues addressed as quickly as possible. We get a lot of information for people who are wanting help. Excuse me. A lot of people who are wanting information to help. Best thing you can do, especially right in your small local area, don't go out into major areas. Public Works mentioned just, hey, pick up a little bit of debris in your trash cans or your trash bags. Keep it local, but stay out of the major areas. Everything is still, very, very dangerous, very hazardous conditions. Let me pull up our KPUB utility report. Of course, it went away. So KPUB still has approximately 600 customers that are without power. The largest remain outage customers are west of Ingram, south of 39, along South Fork of Hunt. KPUB issued a mutual aid request on July 4th. 50 personnel and utilities and contractors from across Texas are coming in to support operations and restoration. Hunt or South Fork sustained extensive storm-related damage, including approximately 40 downed power poles with widespread tree and flood debris, heavily damaged infrastructure. Restoration in these remaining areas will be lengthy and complex, and customers should prepare for multi-day outages. Customers outside of these remaining areas still experiencing an outage should report it to KPUB by calling KPUB's outage line at 855-959-2496. But power has been restored to most of the other customers. Like I said, about 600 are still remaining. A lot of the county is also on Aqua Texas or private wells. We try to get information on that, but we don't have a lot of information as far as private wells are concerned or the status of Aqua Texas. But a big bulk of what we had coming through the Guadalupe is within the city limits, which is on the city limit, or city water supply. Aqua Texas and some of those other public water systems are typically outside of what we're thinking is the damage area, but we have not had any reports from Aqua Texas on outages. And with that, we will take a couple questions.
Alden, is the recovery for some of we're hearing some recovery of bodies in Louise Hayes Park, and the other part of that question is how many red tag buildings are now along the river that the Kerrville Fire Department has issued?
Yeah, so when you talk about red tag, you're talking about like condemned buildings. Obviously out here, the damage is extensive. Right now, we're really focused on life safety. We are focused on search and rescue. Search and rescue is the priority. So we're not really red tagging buildings. Now we do have structural teams come out. They will mark stuff. You'll see spray paint. A lot of that is to identify where we've at least primary searched. But we are not going into the structural side of things unless it poses a risk to first responders. Our primary focus is on search and rescue of every single person involved, and we'll continue through the night to make sure that happens. Yes, real quick, we are finding bodies and stuff. We knew today was going to be that day. So our numbers are going to constantly be changing. We are constantly working on identification and working with our local partners to ensure that we bring in all the resources so we can make sure that we partner with folks.
What is the communication procedure for letting camps and other things on the river know when to evacuate in situations like this?
So each camp is obviously mostly private, or they have different ownerships. And so especially in this situation, so let's talk about this one more specifically. The event happened very fast. Rose over 20 feet, 30 feet within less than a 2-hour time span. On a holiday in the morning, there wasn't a lot of time in this case. As far as warnings. Obviously, there's a lot of things going around. We want to make sure that we focus on the early level. Regardless of the warning side of things, again, we want to make sure that we take care of our local community and focus on search and rescue operations. So please keep that question. We definitely want to get these addressed. But right now, we want to focus on getting everybody that we possibly can out.
Has that number of the Camp Mystic campers at 27 changed?
As of right now, I do not think it has changed. It is still 27. Yes,
do you know how many people you guys are searching for as of right now, or is there no cap on that number?
So right now, we're kind of looking at this in two ways. Call it the known missing, which is the 27 camp kids that are missing. We will not put a number on the other side because we just don't know. Campers are coming in for 4th of July weekend. People are camped along the riverbank. People are coming in to visit. There's a number that we just don't know yet, and we don't know what we don't know. So as things are starting to develop and as things are starting to move along, we're not going to put a cap on this. We are just going to continue until we find everything else. One more question.
We know there are many children missing. Are there any camps?
Let me give it to somebody else.
Just one question about current rescue. Can you give us a sense about how often you're seeing a rescue, and just in terms of kind of like, for example, when your last rescue was?
So with obviously with the camps, we've been rescuing people out of these camps by the hundreds, all day. So there's a lot of folks that are shelter in place, so we leave them in place to make sure that we get them food, water, and some of these camps actually now are self rescuing, if you will. Maybe that's not the right word, but they are self extricating, if you will. So they're getting water's down, they're getting their own resources, they're not having to tie up local and state resources. We are monitoring them, and they're accounting for their own folks. So that has been going on obviously for over 800 plus people, and we're continuing to do that. So good.
Sorry, one more question. I can absolutely appreciate that right now the focus is finding the missing, and it's a very active search and rescue. But what do you say to the parents that are in grief, understandably frustrated, as to how in the world this could happen? How in the world you could have so many campers in the way of this danger and not taken out of there ahead of the storms?
Yeah, that's the question of the hour. But with these, this is last time it was this bad, and this one is even worse than that. Was 1987. You can't predict it. Everybody in the media even knows, everybody who does this and sees this every single day, you have the inverse effect of if you continue to push it, and you see this in Houston areas all the time, you cry wolf. What happens when you continue to ramp things up and you continue to put a lot of information out there? Again, not to harp on the media, but there's a lot of stuff that gets overspun up, and we see that way too often, and then that trickles down. So we did look at stuff. Obviously, I had told the story. I was out on the river trail at 3:30. I left about 4 o'clock. We did not see any signs of the river rising, and by 5:20, we almost weren't able to get out of the park on the upper end. It rose that quickly.
So was it a matter of it just rising so quickly and this being a massive tragedy, or people weren't taking it seriously?
No, this was a massive tragedy, hands down. We are hitting from our, again, flood maps. We're seeing some areas where it's hitting the 100-year flood thing. And again, we talked about the North and South Fork. That water hit perfectly. You heard Chief Nemkid talk a little bit about, the wide area. This went from San Angelo to Waco and all. They stage where they can, but you do not know what's going to happen, one, until water falls, and two, the predictions were definitely off. That water and rain fell almost double of what was anticipated, both in the North and South Fork, and converged into one place, and it rose that quick. So thank you.
Sheriff, do you mind repeating the numbers again?
That's the Kerrville City Manager, Dalton Rice, answering questions from the media. Let's pull the audio back up.
Thank you.
All right, so one more time, we have 43 victims who have been recovered. Out of that 43, 28 of them are adults, 12 of them are pending identification, 15 of them are children, and 5 of the children are still pending identification. The next press briefing will be at 10 in the morning and one to follow at 3 in the afternoon. Thank you.
Do you have an updated number on recoveries? I don't, sir.
10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Central Time. That's when the next updates are expected.
All we could do is pray, really, because a lot is going on. A lot is going on, man.
Well, thanks for joining us. As always,
I think they're at that point anytime soon. I thought that question about switching to recovery was a little presumptive. Right now, they're very much in the rescue phase and looking for anyone out there. And there could very well be survivors that have found high ground places out of the water that they still have to discover. And they did describe that grid search methodology they use, where they go through and they look at this stuff in a very systematic manner, clearing anything, basically going through and looking at all the terrain, clearing the terrain as they go through. They will be marking on the ground so that people know what terrain has been actually looked at, and trying to find anyone out there. And of course, with everyone missing, but especially with these little girls that were in that campsite, I think everybody there is very much putting out 110% to try and find any survivors that could be out there.
You're no stranger to disasters like this, Hal. They alluded to it during the press conference, but can you describe how something like this happens, how quickly the water moves in, and why we're talking about so many casualties as a result?
Yeah, I can, and I'll explain this. I used to, under the U.S. Northern Command, I was an emergency preparedness liaison officer. I worked with the FEMA regions on this. After retiring, I moved into training FEMA regions, training defense coordinating elements to work with the FEMA regions. And I've trained everything from local community centers all the way up to foreign governments in emergency management, emergency preparedness stuff. So that's kind of where my background is on this. And what I can tell you is that when you look at the weather situation, when you look at the rain coming in, you saw where they were talking about 4 to 6 inches of rain coming in. Well, that just tells you one part of it is how much rain's coming in. Then you have to look at the topography. You have to look at the terrain. And there's a lot of variables there. Obviously, the terrain in terms of, is it mountainous, hilly? This is up in that North Texas hill country, an area I know pretty well. It's very channelized or canalized, depending on how you want to describe it, where the water will collect very quickly and then move into these channels. You have to look at the soil. Is it going to be where the water hits and then runs off very quickly? Will it soak in? You look at vegetation, what state it's in. You look at a variety of factors that will deal with how fast that water will accumulate in these low areas. In this case, from what they're reporting, it went from having literally seeing very little or no change in the water level of the river, or the rivers, I should say, to jumping up over 26 feet within a period of 45 minutes to an hour. That is a phenomenal water raise. And you can imagine with that people who are camping, and this is the middle of the night, we're talking between 3 and 5 o'clock, the people who are camping there, all of a sudden they're surrounded with rushing water. This isn't a seep flood where it just slowly raises up. This is a flash flood. So some would look at it and say, well, the water is slowly rising. Yes, but once they get out in that water, that's fast moving water. There's a lot of debris in there, which means they can get knocked off their feet. And you can imagine if you get knocked off your feet, you go underwater with all the rocks, trees, automobiles, whatever could be underwater, that the survival chances drop considerably when that happens. So that's what they're looking at. That's the scenario that occurred in that area.
Al, we heard Governor Abbott declare, it was a disaster declaration, I believe, was how he began the press conference. What levers does that pull, and what resources does that give for an operation like this?
Well, Governor Abbott did what he has to do in order to kick some things in. And I think Kristi Noem, the DHS secretary, kind of explained it goes from local to state to federal. There is a process where the local government declares a disaster, and then that goes up to the state for request for assistance, where they declare a disaster. And then that includes a request for federal assistance. And then when President Trump, and I'm certain that he's going to declare a disaster, that kicks in what's called the Stafford Act. And the Stafford Act deals with unlocking the resources of the federal government to come in and provide assistance on a major level. Now, you already heard that some things at the local level, for example, the U.S. Coast Guard is out there. Keep in mind, the U.S. Coast Guard does search and rescue all the time. That is one of their primary missions. They also have a lot of unique capabilities, particularly with helicopters and air support and people who are trained to do things like drop out of the sky and rescue people out of off of buildings or potentially out of trees or any place else they might be. So the Coast Guard is out there. They were invaluable during Hurricane Katrina, and everybody got a chance to see what they do. And then Customs and Border Protection. One of the things I should mention that might have been missed is that the Border Patrol, CBP, when they're on the border, they look for missing people all the time. People cross the border out into the desert. They can get hurt, they can get lost, all sorts of stuff. So the Border Patrol, by necessity, by virtue of its mission, does a lot of search and rescue, just simply looking for people, illegal migrants who have gotten lost or maybe hurt or dying out in the desert or somewhere else. So they do this. They also do water rescue. Keep in mind that a lot of the border, particularly in Texas, is the Rio Grande River. So there are search and rescue things they have to get involved with very quickly. When people trying to cross the river will get swept away. And so they're very adept at this. So these are a couple of resources that the Department of Homeland Security has that they kind of rushed in there very quickly. But once you see the Stafford Act put in there, you can see a lot of resources. And then you can see the sort of stuff that I used to work with, which is bringing in potential military resources, federal military resources that could be used to provide assistance as well.
Al, where does something like this go from here? We have been endlessly watching the video scrolling on our screen of the water, and this is scary stuff. I mean, you can see the trees there, how far up on the branches they are. That's compared to this live vantage point right now. I will say, just from this one specific vantage point, it looks like the water is receding. How important is that with them as they begin the rescue and recovery efforts?
Well, for search and rescue, something like this helps immensely because what you can imagine, that water, you just can't see through it. It is murky. It is filled with all sorts of stuff, things just under the water. And so it's very difficult. Well, they wouldn't be alive, but if there was someone trapped under the water, when they're looking for their remains, if you will, it'd be very difficult to do so. But what it does do is it provides an ability to move more freely through the area. Hopefully they can get on vehicles with high clearance, depending on how bad the mud is or whatever, and cover more area more quickly to see if there's anybody in those trees. Also, if somebody has been in those trees as the water lowers down, as you don't see that fast moving water, there might be an opportunity for those who have survived in higher levels, like the trees or something, to potentially get down and then move through that calmer water to safety where they can be potentially rescued and link up with rescue forces or anybody else that would happen to be out there. So this is absolutely critical, but it also gives you an idea of the flash flood condition. The water jumped up 26 feet. That's over 8 meters. Within about an hour, and just as quickly it is lowered back down, and you're seeing how fast it came down. So it was a very powerful, and I can't say that enough, very powerful in terms of kinetic energy flash flood that moved through there. And you kind of get a sense for that. With a slower moving flood, a lot of times you won't see as many vehicles. Seep flooding, you'll see it, but with flash floods, people, as they get warning, will hop in their vehicles and get out of there as quickly as possible. What you saw in the images coming out of this one is a lot of vehicles were caught up in the flood, and that's an indication that people just didn't have warning to get out of there. And that tells you that it was a pretty powerful flood. And tragically, what's going to probably indicate is that a lot of people just weren't able to get out. I mean, we have to remain hopeful that they're going to find more survivors. That's the hope. Of course, the other side of that is they're also going to find those who did not survive, and that's the tragedy, the catastrophe that something like this entails.
Can you speak to the involvement of the Department of Homeland Security in something like this? We just heard Secretary Noem talking about recovery efforts. How does DHS get involved? How does FEMA get involved?
Well, FEMA is a component of the Department of Homeland Security. And at the highest level, Secretary Noem oversees all federal resources.
Shout out to Jet. God bless you, Jet. He says, "Did you hear I am a bot now? Genesis, beep, bop, bop." Man, come on, Jet. You know what? Liberals would say anything. They would say anything to get your attention. They're just trying to get your attention, Jet. They're trying to get your attention, bro. Have a good time. That's all I'm going to say. Have a good time, Jet.
On the Department of Homeland Security, but that includes FEMA. That also, FEMA is also the executive agency, as is DHS, for anything under the Stafford Act. That's what they are the lead on. That's where you're going to see all the federal money, all the federal resources kind of falling under that presidential declaration with the Stafford Act. So she has an absolutely critical role in that. Now, and within FEMA, there's the administrator who's in charge of all of FEMA. But within Texas, that is what's called FEMA Region 6. And the nation is broken up into 10 FEMA regions. I used to work very closely with FEMA. Well, I was actually assigned for FEMA Region 9, which is pretty close to Texas, not that far away, dealing with the southwestern states and going across Pacific all the way out to Guam. So that's a huge region, but I have worked with FEMA regions all around the country. And FEMA Region 6 is, I think it's Regional Response Coordination Center is out of Denton, Texas. And I was kind of listening. They mentioned the State Emergency Operations Center had been set up. I would imagine at this point that the Regional Response Coordination Center is fully up and going at FEMA Region 6 as well. And that will be used to coordinate all those federal resources. And I would think that they're moving proactively. They're not waiting for that Stafford Act to actually kick in. They're not waiting for that presidential declaration. They are putting everything in place. So once that happens, they can move things as fast as possible. And I would also imagine that there are what could be called warning orders that are going out to a number of potentially military units, but also to a number of other federal resources that are being put on standby, ready to deploy to help with that effort out there. So that's part of the process that FEMA does, bring in other resources from other states as well.
Al, is there any questions about the recovery effort moving forward? Are there anything that you're going to be watching for in the coming days? Obviously, the weather in the coming days is going to be a huge factor moving forward, correct?
Weather's going to be a huge factor coming forward. Obviously, I'll be watching all the resources being channeled from the state, also from the federal government going in there. I'll be watching to see if federal military resources that could be brought to bear are in there. There are a number of federal military installations, larger units, very large units, particularly air units that are in Texas that could be potentially leveraged to support this if they need them. You know, the other thing is you have a limited amount of space out there. So there is that thing where they have to control it. They don't get too much going out there because sometimes you get too many resources in a small area. You can overwhelm that area and pretty soon it becomes a bigger coordination problem than anything else. But I'm also going to be watching something which I think might be a little, not completely unique, but more unique, is you heard about the helicopters flying around. I think they mentioned that explicitly. But I have heard that there are drones being employed. I'm kind of curious about how that's being done. I'm kind of curious if these are just government-owned drones, like local, state, or federal government drones, if there might be citizenry that are being brought in on an exigent basis to help with the search and rescue using drones. And then, of course, the big thing is airspace deconfliction. You know, one of the things we saw with the recent fires, the Palisades fire, the East Eaton fire, but specifically the Palisades fire, is that there was a resident in the area that was flying a drone, and the airspace, it was not getting clearance to the airspace, flying that drone, and the drone actually struck an aircraft that was delivering, Super
Scooper.
Super Scooper, yeah, that was delivering water to drop on the fires, and took the Super Scooper out of commission. Didn't crash it, but it did create damage where it wasn't able to be used. That's one of the things we'll be watching very closely in this environment, is if there are drones being used, how are they going to control those drones? How are they going to control that airspace? You can imagine with helicopters but I'm sure fixed wing will be out there as well, is to make sure you don't have any air-to-air mishaps that could occur. And so I'll be watching that very carefully. And that's because you're just seeing this rapid increase in the employment of drones in just about everything we do. Obviously, we talk about this in warfare all the time, but also we're seeing more and more drones used for things like search and rescue. So I'll be looking at that very, very carefully to see what happens there, and hoping that they manage it well so that there is nothing that goes wrong in the employment of any aviation assets in this effort.
Al Kempfer is a retired Marine.
All I can say here is, man, dear Lord, take the wheel. Ladies and gentlemen, please pray for Texas because this is very devastating. Very devastating. All right. Also, we're waiting on the president's update on this. Of course, he sent his DHS secretary to Texas for sure, and she spoke about his feelings and the first lady's feelings towards Texas right now. And she said he's sending and she's sending their prayers to people of Texas right now. So, yeah, but this is tragic. This is definitely not a good sight. A lot of people have lost their lives to, you know, this flood, including 14 children. So anything that concerns kids is like, man, it just breaks my heart when I hear about children being involved in stuff like this. But instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. And believe in Almighty God. Okay? God is the greatest. America is the greatest nation on the face of the earth. It is currently 5:50 a.m. And of course, today's date is the 6th of July, 2025. Most people ask, yo, you guys do not sleep up on this channel. Yes. Look, we love the United States. We like to bring the updates to the people. So it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, independent, liberal, conservative, progressive. It does not matter. As long as you love the United States, as long as you cherish the idea of the United States, that's all that matters. And of course, no matter what you're going through right now, think about it. You are not among the 32 dead in Texas floods right now. So life is hard. I get it. You might be going through grief. You might be going through mental issues, financial issues, maybe a breakup, a divorce. I don't know what you're going through. I mean, who knows what you're going through? But I just want to tell you, man, take it easy. Relax, take a deep breath, and, do whatever you got to do to move past whatever you're going through right now because it could get worse. All right. We just seen here that 32 dead in Texas floods, including 14 children. So come on, man. No matter what you're going through, put a smile on your face. Put a smile on your face, okay? Put a smile on your face. Take care of yourself. Protect yourself. Love yourself. Yeah, man. Just take yourself seriously and love yourself most importantly, okay? Shout out to the military personnel. Shout out to the veterans. Thank you for protecting the homeland. Shout out to the law enforcement officers. Shout out to Ice Baby. And of course, shout out to our esteemed members. Shout out to Dr. Luke, the GOAT. God bless you. And of course, shout out to Sandra. Sandra just said, man, Sandra, thank you for the super chat. Sandra said, NOAA isn't seeing any changes until 2026, and NWS has hiring exemption. Shout out to Sandra. God bless you, Sandra. Thank you for the super chat. And thank you for being an esteemed member. God bless you, Sandra. And of course, shout out to Ellie, shout out to Ingram, shout out to Ringmaster, and shout out to the moderators. Jet is the new bot because they're saying Jet is a bot. Liberals are calling Jet a bot. So, okay, he's a bot. Okay. He's a bot, ladies and gentlemen. All right, here we go. Shout out to C. Shelley. Anders. God bless you, Anders. Shout out to who else we got? Who else do we have? Is Mr. Busky good? I haven't seen Mr. Busky in a while. Rain promo, God bless you. Rain is a viewer, is being consistent. So shout out to Rain. Dead 5-star, God bless you. Hoorah. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. That's all I can tell you, man. Thank you for tuning in. But don't forget, life is hard, but do not throw in the towel. Relax, okay? Just calm down. Relax, okay? Do not throw in the towel. Never quit. Just keep going. Believe God got you. He's your strength, okay? I get it. Sometimes, look, sometimes you just think you can't go on. You can't keep going. But I promise you, man, just calm down. Take a deep breath. And if you need professional help, you should seek for professional help, okay? You know, sometimes that's what you need. So if you need professional help, please seek professional help. But don't forget, we just seen what's happening in Texas. A lot of people are losing their lives. What did they do to deserve this? Okay, so look, this is the world we're living in. We can only make the best we can with the cards that we are dealt. So please just calm down and just know God is in control. All right. With that being said, it is your boy Genesis. Shout out to everybody for tuning in. Welcome to the Genesis Show. It is currently 5:55 a.m. in Georgia. And of course, today's date is the 6th of July, 2025. Today is Sunday. Happy Sunday, everybody. Don't forget, God is the greatest. It is your boy Genesis, and I am signing out.